So, welcome to the free Akashic Trancework webinar. My name is Nathan, and I'm an Akashic Tranceworker. And I again want to welcome you to the experience, and I thank you very much for opening yourself to it. And this is an interactive session. Obviously, I'm really here, Susan. A lot of these experiences are recorded. That's kind of the standard for webinars, but in my opinion, a webinar is not really a webinar unless you're engaged in it, right? Otherwise, you're just watching a video. So for now, we're doing these as often as possible to kind of educate people on what trance work is and what it can do for you, and to talk about some really important things that we've experienced in our work, which we call astral boundaries, which is really just a way to protect our energy as we move into these spaces of higher awareness. And then I'll demonstrate some of the ways that I work with people with my voice to guide them through these different experiences. My partner, Astara, is on here as well. And together we've created this really powerful, unique modality through our many years of experience working in different tools and techniques. So again, we welcome you. So let's talk a little bit about the kind of people that are drawn to this work and what all of this stuff can do for you if you're interested in exploring these things. Ultimately, what we've come to realize, there are certain people that have a lot of stuff going on inside of them. A lot of, for lack of a better term, noise, right, going on in their minds. And there are a lot of things happening, a lot of dimensions of awareness. You might have knowledge of a past life. You might have knowledge of a spirit connection. You might have knowledge of connecting with people that have passed. Maybe you receive information about people. Maybe you can do readings for people. Maybe you just have a lot of visions. Maybe you're seeing things that other people don't see. Maybe you think you're crazy. A lot of people do think they're crazy. And we don't want to minimize anyone that has mental health issues. We work a lot with people for healing and for encouragement and for positive reinforcement. But we believe that oftentimes many of these things that are classified as mental health issues are actually our deeper intuitive awareness. A lot of people possess this shamanic view of mental health. And that's what we've come to understand, is that understanding ourselves is the key to wellness, to growth, to expansion. We are all about expansion. We want to expand our awareness, expand our consciousness, have living, thriving, growing experiences in life. And that's what we're about. We've come to understand that we and many other people grow and evolve in this three-phase cycle. And we've adapted this from the concept of Ubuntu, which means I am because we are. And we've come to understand something which we call the ARE cycle. We are, we activate, we release, we expand. We activate our higher awareness when something comes into our experience that we weren't previously aware of. It could be a person, it could be an idea, maybe you read something, maybe something happens to you. A lot of times, some of our most powerful activations are through loss and tragedy, and that can be unfortunate, but it makes us aware of things that we weren't previously aware of before. And oftentimes, those things that we're not aware of are things we need to let go of. Old traumas, old fears, old thought patterns, belief systems, things that just don't serve us. It could even be relationships or jobs. It could just be points of view. Maybe it's a habit. It could be anything. But these are things we really need to let go of. We need to release. And we've developed some very specific tools for releasing those things. And that allows us to move into what we call the expansion phase, which is where all the magic really happens, where we can access things like our past lives, our Akashic records, the knowledge of everything that's come before. We can connect with our star family. We can connect with all of the spiritual beings around us. We can connect with ourselves at a deeper level. We can be more present with our hearts, more present with our families, with our friends, with our partners, with our children, with our parents, whoever it is that we want to connect with more. Allowing ourselves to understand what's going on in here is what matters. So how do we do this? How do we explore all these things? How do we go through this whole activation, release, expansion cycle? Really, it comes down to knowing how to manage, how to understand our different senses, our different states of awareness. We have many different senses, right? In our conventional Western world, we talk about the five senses, and then we kind of generally vaguely have this idea of this sixth sense that we can access, this sort of intuitive, psychic, non-physical awareness. But it's very vague, right? Like, what does it mean to have psychic awareness? What does it mean to have, empathic abilities? It's very vague. It's very difficult to really talk about because we don't really have words for these things, not effective normal words that really make sense because we don't have a language that talks about these things. But in Egypt, they talked about having 360 senses. All of these different things, these intuitive abilities, these mediumship abilities, these psychic abilities, clairsentience, clairaudience, remote viewing, dream awareness, astral traveling, intuitive powers, all these things are just different senses that we can turn on and off. Most of us have been walking around our entire lives with our hands over our eyes or ears, so to speak, because we've had these senses shut down. Because we've been told that they're not valid. We've been told that our imagination, that our sort of daydreamy sense of otherness is just something to be dismissed or suppressed because it's not productive in many ways, right? We don't have a paradigm where these things fit. So in Akashic Trancework, we're trying to encourage ourselves to find our own paradigm. And to do this, we can go to these different states of awareness. We can go into different states of trance, which a trance state is really just a change, just a shift, right? We're changing something from one state of awareness. I'm aware of things on one level, and then I shift and I'm aware on a different level. Most of the time, we're very conscious of what's happening, or we're kind of floating off and daydreaming. If you're very conscious of what's happening around you, if you're engaged, if your inner senses are up, if you're feeling a level of anxiety, if you're feeling pressure, then your brain is producing beta waves. And this can be measured on an EEG. You may be familiar with these things already. These are pretty common knowledge these days. And if you've looked into brain entrainment, and I don't know what your background is, but you're always free to jump in. If you know anything about these things, I'd love to have a discussion actively about these things. But my understanding from my experience and my research is that the beta waves are what keep us engaged with our external 3D physical world, right? When you have a lot of beta waves happening, you're not really introspective, you're not relaxed, you're very go, go, go. And we need these beta waves, right, to be able to engage with the world, to do our work, to get up out of bed, to feed ourselves, take care of our family and things like that. But when we want to go into a trance state, when we want to be able to relax and kind of look within, then we want to go into an alpha state. And most of us go into these alpha states very readily. And alpha waves are produced in the brain when we're kind of relaxed, maybe daydreaming, spacing out a little bit, maybe taking a very light nap or just relaxing, or even if we're actively engaged, we can take ourselves into an alpha state because we can relax our minds enough through exercise and yoga and dance. People can even go into a dance state in alpha, go into an alpha state through dance as well. Another way that people often go into alpha states is through the use of teacher plants, such as ayahuasca, psilocybin, LSD. Those take you into an alpha state too, a very intense alpha state where you are engaged. All of your internal symbolism, your internal dream language is projected outwards. Or maybe you're seeing the reality for what it is. I'm not to say, but it's a very engaged experience usually. If you're on some kind of hallucinogen or teacher plant, then you're probably going to be pretty awake. And you're going to be seeing things other people aren't seeing and experiencing things other people aren't seeing maybe, but very engaged, very active, right? And it's been shown that these alpha waves are produced in those states. So alpha states, like just daydreaming, just kind of imagining things, are very powerful, and they can be used to envision, to manifest in some very real ways. We don't really give our alpha states enough credit. We tend to try to take ourselves out of them. We might feel guilty. We might feel like we're dazing off or dozing off or just spacing out. But we can do a lot of very powerful work in those alpha states. We can do a lot of visualization, a lot of engagement with the subconscious mind, a lot of creative engagement, because that's what we want to do. We want to engage the subconscious mind using our creativity, using our imagination, because the subconscious mind, the dream world, is all about symbolism. That's the language of the subconscious, right? It's symbolism. If you've ever dreamed, if you do any lucid dreaming, then you know that everything that's in that dream is actually symbolic of something else. Carl Jung talked about this a lot if you're familiar with him. Talked about the archetypes, about how everything in a dream is a symbol of something else going on within your psyche, right? It's very much true when you're in a trance state too. If you engage your subconscious mind with these visual practices that we teach, then you can actually engage with the subconscious in very powerful ways without having to go to sleep, right? Alpha waves don't happen when you go to sleep. When you go to sleep, you're primarily going to be experiencing delta and theta waves, delta and theta experiences. Delta is that deep sleep that we go to where our minds are pretty much diminished, our egos are diminished, we're just at rest. All we want to do is rest. We have no desire to do anything else but rest. We don't really care about dreaming. It's that place of sleep, of rest, of deep healing. If we're deeply rested, then we can go into a theta state comfortably. Usually when we're sleeping, we go first into a delta state, and then once we get enough physical rest, once our minds get enough rest, then we can go into a dream state, which is theta awareness, theta state, theta trance, right? And the more that you go into that theta place, the more engaged you will be with your subconscious mind. If you ever have a lucid dream or anything like that, then you'll understand the power of those theta states. And that's often what we talk about when we talk about going into a trance, is trying to induce a theta state from a waking state. That's what people like hypnotherapists and shamans and people who run guided meditations, people who do like yoga nidra, yoga practice, they're all trying to induce a deeper theta state where the mind is desensitized to the external environment, right? And that's what the formal definition of a trance is, where, the mind is dissociated from the external senses. And sometimes it can be so extreme that you can come along and you can pick up someone's hand and it would just drop and they wouldn't even realize that you're doing it. It's Some hypnotists have done experiments where they've shown that, people can hear really loud noises right up in their face and still not be distracted because of the suggestion to go down into that theta state. It's a very powerful place. And in Akashic Trancework, what we want to teach is how to take yourself down there. It's fairly easy for many of us to go down into a trance state if we're guided by someone else, right? We can go into the alpha states ourselves, and we can very easily even take ourselves down into a theta state where we're more engaged with our inner world. But usually, if we're doing this by ourselves, we'll kind of fall asleep, right? We'll relax enough and we'll go down to that delta state. We may come back up to a theta state at some point, but we just kind of go into this relaxed state, and that's great. It's very healing. But in Akashic Trancework, we want to kind of explore that sweet spot between the alpha and the delta, that theta place. We want to try to stay there as long as we can and come up from it instead of going down to delta. Because what happens when we go down to delta is we tend not to remember what happened, which we're still experiencing it, but we want to be able to bring these experiences back to our conscious awareness so we can learn about them, so we can analyze them, so we can use them for our spiritual growth, so we can recover skills and knowledge from the Akashic record, so we can do readings for other people. There's a lot of power in those trance states. And we teach some specific methods to bring ourselves up and down between these different states of trance. So we talked a little bit about alpha trance, right? Which is not really a technical trance, but we call it that because it can be a very relaxed state. You do a lot of work in an alpha state. So one of the easiest ways to bring yourself into an alpha state is through breathing. right? Breath work is fundamental to pretty much all spiritual paths, right? If you've done yoga, meditation, anything like that, qigong, anything like that, martial arts, you've done a lot of breath work, most likely. Even if you haven't, everyone knows that if you just breathe deeply, you'll relax. We've come to see that trick to getting ourselves from a highly active beta state into relaxed but still active and awake alpha state is a breath count of at least 5. Counting to 5 as you inhale, counting to 5 as you exhale. Optionally, if you want to, you can actually hold between the inhale and exhale. It's not necessary. And this can be adapted individually. Some people have more or less lung capacity, so maybe 5 is too much, maybe 5 is not enough. But you want to relax your body enough to engage your imagination, to engage your sort of daydreaming ability to think about something else other than what's going on right in front of you. And that's easy, right? We can easily think about something else besides what's going on right in front of us, except when we can't, except when we can't. And the 5 count breath allows us to go to that alpha place without sinking down too quickly to that theta place. So we can kind of play with our alpha awareness, and then we can intentionally take ourselves into that theta place, which is where a lot of the real magic happens. So I invite you right now to do some breathing with me. I'm going to count for you, and I'm going to count in 5 and then out 5. And I'll take you into a pretty relaxed place pretty quickly. So let's take a couple breaths. In for 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And out for 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just continue breathing for about 30 seconds. I'll keep track. You find you want to breathe a little bit deeper or a little bit shallower, that's fine. Try not to go beyond 7 counts on the inhale and 7 counts on the exhale. So when you do that, you can automatically kind of feel your mind starting to drift and wander a little bit. You're sending yourself some cues, you're sending your body some cues to relax a little bit. And as soon as you do that, you're activating your astral awareness. When we talk about astral awareness, we're talking more about everything within. We talk about physical versus astral. We do that to simplify things in Akashic Trancework because everything that's inside of us is part of our astral experience. Sometimes we talk about astral projection, out-of-body experience, and that is something that's possible. You know, we can project ourselves fully outside of our bodies and completely shut down all of our awareness of our physical bodies. But we don't need to do that to have an astral experience. Every time that you look within, every time that you imagine something, every time that you remember something, every time you feel something, which is always, you might be catching on to the fact that everything in a way is an astral experience, but we do differentiate between the external, which is predictable based on certain physical laws. If I pick up a ball in physical space and I drop it, it'll fall every time. If I pick up a ball in my astral space, an imaginary ball, maybe it won't fall. It's not predictable, right? Your subconscious, your creative self, you're going to choose what you do with that ball. And maybe you will let it fall. Maybe you'll have it float off somewhere. Maybe it'll turn into a bird when you let go of it. Maybe it'll just dissolve. Maybe there is no ball, right? There are no rules that we can see that we can easily predict to the astral experience, but there are certain fundamental underlying principles to those experiences. One of the main ones is that the subconscious always responds to our intention, to our active thoughts. And when we start to think about that, that's when we want to be able to move ourselves into deeper states. But before we talk about that too much, I wanted to talk about one of the other ways we can get into a state of alpha trance. We can bring ourselves into that inner space. And that method is toning. Toning is a little bit like singing, but it's not singing. You're not trying to perform. You're not trying to sound good. It's more like humming. It's more like just humming into a specific part of your body. If you're familiar with things like chakras and toning into the chakras, toning mantras, chanting, it's a similar principle, but it's much simpler. You don't have to use any specific phrases or tones or sounds or notes. You're just sort of intuitively humming into part of your body. So in order to bring ourselves into an alpha state, we can actually hum into our heads. And this is great if just the breathing is not relaxing us enough because, if you're feeling agitated, if you're feeling a lot of anxiety, then just breathing is not always the best thing. I mean, if you've ever been really agitated and someone's like, just breathe, you're like, I don't want to breathe. I can't breathe right now. My mind is too busy. But toning is a great way to bring ourselves very quickly down from a beta state into an alpha state in a very pleasant way, right? So if we want to bring ourselves into an alpha state using our voice, using the tone of our voice, we can just tone into our head, into our nose, into our forehead, into our throat. We just send the sound into that part of our body. And as long as you're able to make sound with your mouth, you can do this. Doesn't it sound good? I'm not a singer. I have an okay voice, but I don't worry about sounding good when I do this. I just want to feel the vibration in my body. So I'm going to demonstrate for you. If you want to do this with me, you're welcome to. You may not be able to hear me especially well, depending on how well this mic picks it up, but all I'm doing is just toning, humming into my face, into my head. So I take a deep breath. We'll do it again. You don't want it to be loud or forceful, just kind of feeling the vibration. Vibration and sound are everything. They really are. We do a lot of work with sound in our practice. We work with crystal singing bowls and different instruments and my voice to really find as many possible ways to heal and relax as we can. And it's very effective using the voice. The voice is the most powerful instrument you'll ever find. It's always with you. It's always with you. Anywhere you go, you can always tone. So bringing yourself into a relaxed alpha state using the tone of voice, toning into your head, it's very quick. And you probably do it anyway. You probably have done it already, just kind of humming to relax yourself. So it's just actively doing that. You can go further with toning. You can learn how to tone all the way through your entire body and activating different parts of your energy centers with tones. It's really fun exploration that you can do. But just bringing your voice up and down through your body can have a lot of amazing healing, rejuvenating, recuperative effects. So let's talk a little bit about the theta states. So as we mentioned, theta states are that deeply relaxed place where we're pretty much shut down. Our bodies are shut down. Our senses are more or less shut down. You're still more or less aware of what's going on around you, but you're more focused on what's going on within. In a deep theta state, you may not be aware at all of what's going on around you. But really, in order to allow yourself to fully relax into that theta place, we do need to learn how to get ourselves down there. And I can induce a theta state in someone, usually with my voice, in about 10 to 15 minutes. But if you can master these breathing techniques, and the toning techniques that I'll teach you for theta trance. And if you can be mindful of how you're using your breath and your sound, you can bring yourself into a very powerful theta state within a minute or two at most. And it's just a count. Again, we've observed that 7 counts on the inhale and 7 counts on the exhale is about the right frequency for most people to get into a theta state. If you elongate your breaths up to 9 seconds or more, then you are probably going to go into a delta state, right? Which is fine, you know, and you can use that too if you have trouble sleeping. That's great. We love delta states. I love delta states. I encourage going into them. But for the purpose of doing trance work, we want to try and stay in the alpha theta range, right? So that we can communicate, so that we can remember, so we can bring it back. One thing that you can do while you're in your theta states to remember what happens is record yourself speaking. And we teach kind of how to get to that place where you can do that too, but it's pretty easy. You basically just take yourself down to that state and then cue yourself, right? So you end up kind of moving back and forth between the alpha and theta states. So it's actually a lot of fun to kind of record yourself or just turn on a recording device and then take yourself down into a theta state and just say whatever comes. That's when you start getting into what people sometimes call channeling in another awareness, because there's a different ego that kind of comes in. So there's some really powerful experiences that can happen there. So staying in a theta state is a really amazing experience. So maintaining that count of 7, not going beyond 9. If you go too shallow, then you'll bring yourself back up to an alpha state, which is okay. It's okay to go back to an alpha state and kind of move back and forth between them. And even to dip down to a delta state, it's not like you're always in just one state or another. You kind of move back and forth between these different states all the time. So just being mindful of the breath. Let's try it now just for a couple seconds. And a lot of people find they actually want to sit back while they do a theta breath because it will relax you. If I do it too much myself while I'm sitting here, I'll just kind of topple over a little bit because it's a very relaxing experience. But it's just 7. Count of 7 in, count of 7 out. You can hold if you want to between breaths. I do recommend if you're going to do that, put your tongue on the roof of your mouth. I don't know why I showed you that. You can't see my tongue, but the idea is you put your tongue on the roof of your mouth, and that will kind of help you to align your energy while you are holding your breath. But you don't have to do that. The 7 count is the key. So we count in 7 on the inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And 7 on the exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's very deeply relaxing, and we tend to start drifting off. We do that, and I find that I'm more tired now and I want to go relax, but then I become mindful of how deep I'm going, and I bring myself back up by staying at that 7 count. It can be a little bit difficult to keep track of at first, but once you kind of master that, you can really get a sense of how deeply you're breathing and set the intention to say, I'm only going to breathe deep enough to go into my theta state, but I'm not going to go into a delta state. And that will allow you to move yourself through these theta places. And again, theta is such a powerful state that's where you can do some of your deepest astral work. That's where you can travel to different dimensions of awareness, and you can really connect with yourself at a true deep level. You can connect with your guides, you can connect with your past lives, you can connect with your Akashic awareness. You can do so much in that place. And the breath is, again, the simplest tool, but not always the most accessible, because maybe we don't want to keep track of the breath. Maybe it's too much pressure. Maybe it's not working. You know, maybe we have too much in our minds. And again, sound is our friend. Tones are our friend for the theta breath. And this is probably one of my favorite things to do in the entire universe. So I just love showing people every day how to do this. And once they learn it, it's just so amazing. Just toning down into that space between your heart and your solar plexus, humming, basically. And if you think about this, how primally relaxing this is to the body, how it immediately brings us down almost to a place of dreaming. How does a mother soothe a baby, right? Intuitively, instinctively. So this is a very relaxing feeling, and it brings us down to a very deep state of peace very quickly. Just humming down into that spot again between the heart and the solar plexus. And I invite you to do it with me for a moment. Mm. Inhaling deeply. Mm. You can switch it up a little bit. You can kind of make a little song out of it, but you want to feel the vibration in your chest and your stomach and your arms and your hands. It's very relaxing. And when you do that for just a minute or so, that will take you down into a theta place pretty quickly. And there's a lot of magic in that. I found when I tone myself into a theta state, I stay there pretty automatically versus having to keep track of my breath. So those are two methods that you can use to get yourself down into that really deep theta state. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Those are the cornerstones of Akashic Trancework. We love bringing ourselves between these different states, and everything that we do there is an extension of all the modality we've developed here. One of the other cornerstones of Akashic Trancework is safety, right? We want to do these things safely. We want to do these things ethically. There's a lot of stuff happening in our minds. And one of the primary safety measures that we have in Akashic Trancework is the concept of the astral boundary. Once we've learned how to move between these different states of awareness, these different dimensions of consciousness, so to speak, we become aware of a lot of stuff happening around us. Different people that we know, emotions we've experienced, memories that we have, things happening in the world, responsibilities, all these things, right? And as we begin to face ourselves, our awareness of these things kind of rushes in, and it can be overwhelming. It can be, and it would be unethical of me to say that it's not a lot to face sometimes. We're pretty selective about who we engage this practice with. Everything that we do, all of our marketing, all of our messaging, all of our images, everything is really intended to call to people who are most drawn to this work, people who understand the importance, the ethics of embracing unconditional love, right? And that is ultimately the safest thing. The safest thing that we can do is manifest unconditional love. But even just saying that term doesn't really mean anything. What do I mean when I say unconditional love? It's that connecting energy, but it's also something that most of us do not have enough of for ourselves. We don't invest in ourselves enough. We don't pour into ourselves, as my partner Star likes to say. She visualizes it as a pouring in. And I love that because it is a pouring in of divine energy coming in from the universe. And we have to open ourselves to it. We have to open our hearts to receive this divine, loving energy, whatever divine means to you. We don't, in practice, say believe in this or believe in that, but all that loving, unknowable energy that comes into our heart center is our primary astral boundary. It's what will keep us safe no matter what, no matter what we're experiencing. We need to have time and space to pour into ourselves. And that can look like a lot of different things to a lot of different people, right? Because we have things like self care. Self care can be a pouring in, but sometimes just thinking about ourselves a little bit, focusing on ourselves is what we need. And it's not selfish. You know, we have this sort of stigma about focusing on ourselves sometimes, become almost like martyrs, right? We have this idea that I have to pour out, pour out, pour out, pour out. And what's left for us? The number one question I ask people when it comes to astral boundaries, how much time do you spend thinking about things that give you distress? How much time do you spend thinking about people, memories, ideas, objects, situations, responsibilities, work, relationships? How much time do you spend on all of those things? And then ask yourself, how much time do you spend just thinking about happy things about yourself? It could be gratitude. It could be remembering things that you love. It could just be sitting back and relaxing and doing nothing even. When we're in those states, are we able to have a private moment to ourselves? Do we have private, personal, intimate, inner spaces where no one else can tread? Do we feel that we're allowed to have that? I believe that we are allowed in life to have a little bit of energy for ourselves. No matter what our obligations are in the world, no matter what our pressures are, no matter what our responsibilities, no matter what is happening to all the people in the universe that we love, that we care about, we still have a right, I believe, to spend some time with ourselves, even if it's 5 minutes a day, just to say, I'm sitting back and I'm taking time for myself. That's the principle of astral boundaries from an astral perspective, from a mental, emotional perspective. The point of accessing all these trance states, one of the major points of accessing all these trance states is mental, emotional management. What do we do with our mental energy? What do we do with our emotional energy? Thoughts and feelings, all those things arise as they do, right? They just kind of come up. But we also have a reactive thought process. We have the ability to respond intentionally with certain thoughts whenever those other feelings and thoughts arise. And that's where the power of astral boundaries come in, right? Think about this for a second. If you are thinking about someone at any given time, they are within your heart space. They're within your astral boundaries. You've let that person in. Maybe it's not a person, maybe it's an energy, a memory, an association. This is kind of what PTSD is. And a lot of this work that we do has been around treating people with PTSD, quite honestly. Akashic Trancework is highly effective for PTSD because we create astral boundaries. We take thoughts, we take intrusive memories, we take patterns, we take triggers, and we isolate them. We decide how much time we want to spend on those things. Maybe it's 10 hours a day, maybe it's an hour a day, maybe it's an hour a week. Maybe we don't need to think about those things at all. Most likely they do need some thinking about. They are calling out to us because they need processing. We can't suppress them. If we suppress them, then we will be damaging ourselves in many ways. That's why bad things happen with people that have done bad things, that have experienced difficult things. The classic soldier, going crazy because they've been taught, they've been conditioned to compartmentalize, to shove down all these things. We don't want to do that, but we do want to allow space for ourselves. We want to create a space of strength within ourselves. So I've been talking for quite a bit, about 45 minutes, and I do go on and on about these topics. I never really get tired of talking about them. I do like one or two of these webinars a day, and it's always different. It's always new. It's always me exploring and experiencing. So I wanted to allow a minute or so if you have any thoughts or comments or any questions, and then if you're interested, I can take you through about a 10 or 15-minute guided trance session, and I'll kind of show you the work that we do if you're interested in that. Great. So what I recommend is finding a nice, relaxed position. Usually people want to have good back and neck support so that you can just really relax into yourself, sitting back and finding whatever position is the most comfortable for you. There's no right or wrong way to sit or to breathe. There's no wrong thoughts or wrong feelings. It's just an opportunity to connecting with yourself. Take some time for yourself. Just by showing up here for this webinar, you've taken some time for yourself. I invite you to take some deep breaths. You can have your eyes open or closed as you choose. Just taking some nice, deep, relaxing breaths. We'll take a count of 5 on the inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the count of 5 in the exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Continue breathing. You may find your mind beginning to wander a bit. Thoughts, feeling, physical sensation. Just observe those things. Just watch them pass through like clouds in a bright blue sky, rising and falling with the breath. And as you relax a little bit deeper, we'll now do a 7 count on each inhale and a 7 count on each exhale. In 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. In 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Continue breathing, but don't fall asleep. Just deeply relax, just observing your thoughts and feelings. And as you relax even deeper, you begin to imagine a safe, warm, happy place, a place from your dream, a place from your fantasy, or a place from your memory. It can even be an abstract place, or just a feeling, just a sensation, a warm place, a happy place, a place where there are no pressure, no responsibility, nothing to do, nowhere to go, just relaxing deeply into this place. This is your heart center. Feel your heart beating. Feel it moving energy to all of your cells as you relax back into this place. You see, you can come here anytime. This is your personal, private space where no energies can come unless you allow them to be there. If any difficult feelings come in, any people, memory, thought, feeling that make you feel uncomfortable, just send them away for a moment. Maybe give them a place of their own, but not here, not in your heart space. And you'll find that some of those things don't go so easily. They persist. They want something from you. They want your time. They want your attention. They want your energy. It's time now to create astral boundaries and decide how much of your time do you want to spend on those things. Maybe you love these beings. Maybe you are responsible for them or feel that you are. Understand that there is nothing in the universe that requires 100% of your energy. You can have time to yourself. How much time each day do you want to give to these energies? How much time each day do you want to give to yourself? It's always a balance. But the more that you nurture and nourish yourself, the more nourishing and nurturing you will be for others. And the more happy you will be, and the more you will thrive, the more resilient you will be. And if you come here to this space, to this astral space, you will be able to journey anywhere in space and time from this foundation of peace and safety and calm and relaxation. Take just a minute there to breathe, relax, creating any boundaries you need within yourself. If you can create boundaries within yourself, you can easily protect yourself from any external condition that may affect you. I now invite you to slowly bring your awareness back to your physical space, to your physical body, in your own time, bringing with you the knowledge, the awareness. It's always good to stretch a little bit. Well, I hope that you enjoyed that experience. Hopefully it was beneficial for you. So anytime that you'd like to engage with Akashic Trancework, you can always reattend one of these webinars if you want to. You can also get a consult with me, a free 30-minute consult, and we'll have information sent to you after this webinar, so you don't need to look that up. But if you want to send me a message and talk about anything, you can do that too. We also have a lot of things that we do, readings and sessions, and we have recorded media with the crystal bowls, and we have a class that we'll be teaching soon. So if you're interested in engaging with us further at Akashic Trancework, we would deeply appreciate you connecting. And if you have any questions or any thoughts or concerns or feedback at all, feel free to reach out anytime. So, deepest blessings. Thank you so much. A wonderful evening. Well, thank you. We appreciate that.